They thought it was just another night patrol, routine, quiet, nothing unusual. But what happened in the Rendlesham Forest in December 1980 would become the most credible UFO encounter in British history. This is the story of Rendlesham, the so-called Roswell of the UK. An event that involved US military personnel occurred on a NATO base and was later actively covered up. And unlike many sightings, this one had evidence. It began in the early hours of December 26th. Airmen at RAF Woodbridge, a British base leased to the US Air Force, saw strange lights descending into the woods. What they thought was a downed aircraft turned into something they couldn't explain. 3 men entered the forest. What they found was no ordinary crash. They described a metallic craft resting silently between the trees. No sound, no engines, covered in unusual markings like glyphs or hieroglyphics. The surface was smooth, the air charged. As they approached, the craft suddenly moved, not like a plane, not like a helicopter. It glided, it lifted vertically, it disappeared into the sky without a sound. The next day, the area showed burn marks, elevated radiation levels, broken tree branches, and most importantly, a written report from the ranking officer on duty, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. But the story didn't end there, because 2 nights later, the craft came back. 2 nights later, on December 28, 1980, it returned. This time, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt went into the forest himself, leading a small security team. And what makes this case even more powerful? They came prepared. Audio recorders, radiation meters, notebooks. As they approached the original landing site, they detected unusual burn marks and indentations in the ground. But the radiation readings, higher than normal, especially in the exact spots where the object had been seen resting. Then something strange began to happen. The animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy. They cried out, panicked, disturbed, as if sensing something humans couldn't. Moments later, lights returned. Glowing spheres hovered between the trees, pulsing white, red, and blue. They moved slowly, intentionally, like they were watching. And on the audio recording, Halt calmly narrates what he sees. They're moving towards us. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. A beam of light from the object straight to the forest floor. At one point, a beam shined directly onto the base itself. Halt and his men stood frozen, watching, unable to explain what was happening. Later, Colonel Halt submitted an official report to the UK Ministry of Defence. It became known as the Halt Memo. But the government's response? No public investigation, no official statement, just silence. They labeled the incident of no defense significance. But the men who were there never forgot what they saw. In the days that followed, those involved in the Rendlesham incident began to document everything they could remember. Several airmen, including Sergeant James Peniston, drew detailed sketches of what they saw in the forest. Peniston claimed he touched the craft, describing it as smooth, glass-like metal with strange symbols etched along the surface. He later reproduced those markings in a notebook. Symbols that resembled ancient hieroglyphs, yet matched no known language. Even more bizarre, Peniston claimed that after touching the craft, he received a series of binary code sequences in his mind. Years later, he would write them down. When decoded, they allegedly referred to coordinates of ancient sites across the globe, and a chilling phrase, exploration of humanity, continuous for planetary advance. What kind of message was that? Meanwhile, many of the soldiers began to experience symptoms. Nightmares, anxiety, memory gaps, strange behavior. Some even claimed they were threatened by intelligence officers, told to stay silent, told that speaking out would end careers. Others reported that their original logs and audio tapes were confiscated, never returned. Even Charles Hall, a decorated officer with a decades-long career, would go on record to say, "This was not a hoax, this was real, and someone, somewhere, knows exactly what it was." The official stance from the UK Ministry of Defence: they closed the case. No further action, no deeper investigation, case dismissed. But for those who lived it, it wasn't over. They knew what they saw, and it wasn't from any known military project. More than 4 decades have passed, and still, no official answers. The Rendlesham Forest Incident remains one of the most credible and well-documented UFO encounters in modern history. Multiple trained military witnesses, radiation readings, physical marks on the ground, audio recordings, and handwritten reports. And yet, the governments involved chose silence. The British Ministry of Defence dismissed it. The U.S. Air Force said nothing. Documents vanished. And those who spoke out were labeled as confused or worse, unreliable. But ask yourself, would decorated officers risk their careers to lie? Would multiple men from different ranks all report the same impossible craft, with the same movements, the same lights, the same symbols? And if this was just a misidentified aircraft, why the cover-up? Why the silence? What happened in Rendlesham wasn't just a sighting. It was a message. Something wanted to be seen. Or maybe something slipped through that wasn't meant to. And someone worked very hard to make sure we'd forget. But we haven't. And we won't. If you believe stories like Rendlesham deserve to be told, subscribe to the Veil Files. Like this video to help it reach others. Share it with someone who still believes the truth matters, because this is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And next time, we go deeper, into the darkness, into the silence, into the truth they're still hiding. This is the Veil Files, where the buried truth comes to light.